That's an amazing chord. Let me show you that.
I love that chord.
Welcome to the Tim and Pete Show, episode number 8. We have Eddie Kramer here. Eddie and I have quite a history together. Pete has a lot of great questions for Eddie, and
I went down for this one.
Yeah, it's serious. It's serious.
Rock and roll, mate.
There's so much to talk to you about, though. You can't even retain it. You just do yourself a favor and Wikipedia. Just Google Eddie and just be blown away. It's.
Yeah, I don't even know where to start.
I get embarrassed now. Cut it out.
Yeah. Well, so anyway, check out our website. We have a new website, timandpeteshow.com, I believe.
You can see all the episodes kind of lined up there for easy viewing.
All right, head me off with a question because I'll get rapping for about an hour.
Well, I want to know how you guys actually know one another to start, actually.
It was through Jimmy Waldo from Alcatraz, and you needed... Stop me if this is not correct.
I never stop.
You needed somebody to help you with some Woodstock... We did some Woodstock kind of film stuff that I temped so that you could... Remember that?
Yes.
Am I allowed to talk about that?
Of course.
Okay.
Yes.
You were doing a second installment of the Woodstock film.
Correct. We were repairing some, shall we say, rather out of tune stuff that was played by a very famous guitar player.
Wow. Incredible.
As part of which, and that particular piece in the film had lain dormant for many, many years.
Okay.
And the reason was the freaking thing was so out of tune, it was just impossible. Huh. We can, what the hell, we're going to tell a story. I mean, he tells a story anyway. It's Carlos Santana.
Okay.
And what had happened was when the filming was fantastic, and then obviously people looked at the audio and went, oh, no, I can't use it. So I figured a way how to replace the guitar because it was leaking onto so many tracks. I figured, all right, okay, I can get around this. I need a rhythm guitar. So Jimmy hooked me up with Tim. We came over and we just did it bar by bar virtually.
Wow.
And then once that guitar was in there as a guide, I could then mute and cut and paste and do all kinds of crap to make it sound as if it's reasonably in tune.
Wow.
Sent to Carlos. And he went, hey, how the hell did you do that? My guitar sounds... I said, well, let me tell you, there's a couple of tricks that we did, but the upshot of it was I went up to San Francisco and got him to play the part matching pretty much what Tim did to show him, yes, it can be done.
Yeah, he made me part of the team that gave Carlos this makes sense.
So his was the guide to what Carlos put on.
Incredible.
And then once Carlos put his part on, and he had the original amp and the original guitar and all this stuff, so we could match the tone even more so. Yeah. All we were doing was making a sort of like a guide for him. But he was so blown away with the fact that it could be done.
Yeah.
And then I did some more work, and then I brought the percussion team in because there was leakage on percussion, which I couldn't get rid of. And once I put that on, you can't tell the fact that the guitar was out of tune. Amazing. Now, can I tell the story that Carlos has told? You've heard the story.
I have not.
All right.
Is it about him dropping acid at the show?
That's a great story. Yeah. Tell it because
that's so good.
Great.
So the story is, so he tells me. So we're sitting there. We finished it. He's really happy about. I mean, he's blown away. It sounds great. We're up in the studio in San Fran. And he says, "You know what happened that day?" I said, "No, I don't know." So he said the whole bloody band dropped acid, and then they get the call. Shit, you got to go. Like now, 12 noon or 1 o'clock, and they were like, "Hi, it's guys." I mean, it's just everything was.
Wow.
So we get on stage, and he's looking at the guitar, and he says, "Man, I looked at the strings, and it looked like there were snakes coming out of the guitar." He says, I couldn't figure out where to put my fingers in there. So he said he struggled through it. But here's the weirdest part about the whole story. Yeah, they were stoned and all the rest of that. But somehow or other, he manages. The guitar is out of tune right from that moment where they start the song all the way through, just like a bar, not even a bar before the solo. All of a sudden he manages to pull it in, and he does a great freaking solo that's perfectly in tune.
Wow.
And then the rest of it's out of tune.
Amazing.
So yeah, that's the story.
Wow.
So that's how we met.
Yeah, and then my favorite session with you was probably the most recent one that we did at East West.
East West. Oh, that was
So you
great.
put all the mics up, and everything was just the way you wanted it. You had the right studio.
Oh,
It's-
I love that. So East
it's
West
glorious,
is great.
yeah.
And it was a commercial actually for Nivea cream of all things. But it was a great session because Tim's sitting right there opposite me. You know, we like to communicate
Yeah.
immediately about, oh, how's that sound? Not so much, but bang. It was just, I'm sitting there, I'm just going, wow, this is nice. I could just sit here all day. We were just...
It was great. It really was great. We had the luxury of time and a great studio, and he had all the microphones. Eddie really likes to have all the tools at his disposal. He really
Because
does.
each microphone to me is it has a unique sonic imprint. And depending on where you put it in relation to the amp, do you put it on the center of the cone? Do you go off center? Do you pull it back a foot or two? Do you combine maybe a Royer with a 57 and a 421? Or do you just go single? I mean, at least I have the choices of the various tonalities. Sometimes I use one mic, sometimes I use two, sometimes three, and sometimes even four, depending on what and I'll blend them. But the trick is, I try not to go beyond 2 tracks. I can actually I could make his mono sound like stereo very easily with little tricks on it, which I have to show you one of these days.
Okay.
But you like to kind of have all those mics at your disposal, blend them, and then kind of not end up with a ton of tracks to pick from later. You want to commit.
If I'm cutting a basic rhythm track, depending on what it is, if I'm using Les Paul, Marshall, whatever, it could end up being just a 57. Or it could be a 67, a tube mic. Or it could be a combo of both, but it'll only be one single track.
Well, I remember you're on the hunt, depending on the guitar part.
Right.
Whether it's, it depends on the guitar part, and he's on the hunt for the actual right microphone for that particular part. And then when another part comes around, he starts over.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah.
a really fast,
Yeah.
quick remix.
Yeah.
No, not that one, not that one. Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Got it.
But that's only part of the thing. It's what mic pre do you use? How much EQ do you use? And how much compression? And I like to use both.
Really?
Yeah.
So what are some of your favorite sort of mic pre's and compressors to use?
1081's
1081.
great
Yeah.
because, I mean, 1073 is fine. I love APIs. Well, give me any mic pre, I can make the damn thing work. But my preference is for the Neve stuff, the 1081s and 1073s, 1064, whatever. Any and all of that, fabulous.
Did you say 81 because it's got the more frequency sort of selection?
You have 4 bands, and you can cut low mids, you can boost highs, and you can fart around with the actual internal stuff that's maybe at 200 cycles you want to pull that out, which you couldn't do with the 1073.
Right.
But then it's how much of that do you use? Maybe it's a very delicate amount of it. Maybe the amp sound and the mic just sound so bloody good, just a little bit of top, a little bottom, and you're done. It depends. What are we cutting? Is it heavy metal? Is it blues? Is it rock? I mean, what are we trying to get?
Sure.
But then it's a compression as well, which is 1176 or something like that.
Do you do the same thing with drums? Do you put a lot of mics up on drums and then have options
I
to
usually
pick
have
from?
Tim play drums.
Ah,
That's
very
why
good.
he's still
Secret,
playing.
right? Yeah.
like, do you like to have those options to pick
It's-
from? Or?
Well, once again, it's okay. What is the track? Is the track a contemporary rock band? A young band with that wants a lot of edge and all that kind of stuff. Different kind of miking technique. If it's a quote unquote vintage-y, analog-y kind of thing, of which a lot of bands, new up and coming bands. I know. I just heard about a band that was trying to record onto a cassette to get that kind of cassette sound. And where do you find blank cassette tapes? I was in my vault today because we're moving and everything, and I found a box of BASF unused cassette tapes, sealed. I thought, damn. There was I tell you, I did some rough mixes of AC/DC. 20 bloody, I can't even remember how many bloody years ago, which I should play you. And the rough mixes was done straight, it was in Australia, straight through the Neve board, right to cassette tape, and they sound absolutely incredible. The crunch from that, oh my goodness. Anyway, what are we looking for, drum-wise, to go back? Start with a great sounding room. East-West, you can't really beat that drum sound. It's phenomenal. Just put up the mics without any EQ, just it sounds fantastic. All right, then you start to do your thing. All right, what are you doing? Left, center, right. For me, that's the triad. I bring up 3 U47s, left, center, right, which is a throwback to the 60s when I first started in the business. Distance makes depth. And you get the mics away from the kit. And when you do that and put the proper EQ in, I love Pultex. So when you do that, I can guarantee you I can do an entire drum kit with those 3 mics and 1 bass drum mic, and that would be the sound.
Wow.
The rest are fill-ins. I mean, I could probably put 12, 14, 16 mics up. But the center core of that whole process is the left, center, right U47s with a nice console.
Incredible.
Can I interject for a second? Since you are credited with doing 5 Led Zeppelin records, starting with Led Zeppelin 2, which is maybe my favorite record of theirs of all time, what about John Bonham? Was it 1 mic or 2 mics? Or
Well, to go back one more step is to say, okay, first it's the sound of the room. Second, it's the, the gear and where you put the mics. And the third, probably the most important thing, is how's the drummer playing? If you've got a shit drummer, you're up shit's creek. But Bonham, it wouldn't matter what kind of fucking mic I put up. I could put up 57s, 58s, it would not matter. It's just how hard he hit. I mean, if you watched him play, the distance from here to this is, say, where his hand was, to the top of the head of the drum, but it was so there was so much impact, so much power behind the hit. He hit so fucking hard. It was just, and the sound that he produced out of his kit was just phenomenal. You couldn't help but get a good drum sound.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously we had to massage things. Of course, you had to get in a room that sounded great, and we were lucky. But even when we were in a small room, quarter the size of, well, maybe it was the length of this, but there was a vocal booth. I'm thinking of an 8-track. You're asking about Zeppelin 2. We did a bunch of tracks in New York at Juggy Sound. It was a dead frickin' room. I mean, dead. And somehow or other his drums just sounded ridiculous.
Wow.
amazing.
That is amazing.
It's quite often it's the drummer and the sound that emanates from his kit.
But now Zeppelin 2, and that's the first, you started with Zeppelin 2 and then went on to do 5 albums, right? Is that
Yeah,
correct?
in between, I mean, Yeah.
And it was recorded in numerous different studios all over the place, right? In between.
Oh, you're talking about Zepp 2?
Zeppelin 2
oh,
in
yeah.
particular.
Well, it started in England, and then the boys brought over a big trunk of 8-track tapes, which they were touring. And the office called me up and said, do you want to, help them finish the record? And I said, yeah, I'd love to, And so we recorded tracks all in New York, a couple of different studios, and then we overdubbed stuff at A&R studios, and we mixed the whole thing in 2 days.
That's
over
incredible.
a weekend.
That's a great
at
story.
A&R Studios.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's got an amazing cohesive quality to it, even though it was kind of done like somewhat piecemeal.
Page,
right?
you got to look. You have to hand it to Jimmy Page. I mean, the guy still is. He's genius, and his concept and his ability to think about the sounds and what he's going to be playing and what the vocal's going to be doing. It's all up there. I mean,
And there were small amplifiers being used.
a lot of the. I can remember very clearly doing an overdub at A&R. In fact, before we actually mixed, he said, "Oh, I need to do this overdub," and he brought this little rocket amp, the little blue thing with the sloping thing with the 110-inch speaker in it, Ampeg.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking
Reverb
about?
rocket.
Reverb
maybe.
rocket.
Yeah, that one, that little guy.
Wow.
I just stuck a 67 in front of it and threw it into the console and put a bunch of EQ and just.
Well, that's the thing. I always had the impression that it was walls of amps, as we all, and then
No.
of course, everybody knows now. But
No, but it's like.
Smaller stuff.
I mean, there's so much shit that went on that record. I mean, the drum solo, for instance, in Moby Dick.
Yeah.
That's chopped from like 2 different studios and
Amazing.
cut across. I mean, you can hear all the edits. They're horrendous. I mean, to this day, I cringe when I hear them, but people like it.
But we don't hear that stuff. You know,
Right.
it just
Yeah.
wouldn't sound right if
Yeah.
it was any different.
No,
It's
of course
like,
not. It's
yeah.
okay.